This morning I talked about three particular dispositions. I talked about collaboration, creativity, and openness and what they look like in the mathematics classroom. Now, a word that I didn't say, but I hope I was demonstrating adequately and weaving it all the way through the presentation, the workshop, was the disposition of playfulness. Now, I think this is something which is not appreciated very much when we think about, what is mathematics about? It's about solving problems, and it is about solving problems. But a huge part of mathematics is we just want to play. We just want to see what happens when we muck about. And the classic example of this, of course, is prime numbers, which G.H. Hardy, I think, what was the way he said it? He was so proud of how useless prime numbers were. He said, there is no, this is the actual word he used, there is no weaponized application of mathematics. And what he was calling to mind was Archimedes, back in the day. Part of his huge use of mathematical expertise was the government of his time saying, can you build us weapons of war? Can you use your mathematical knowledge and prowess to build us weapons? And he did. And Hardy was proud of saying, prime numbers, they're just recreation. They're just playing, right? Now, it just so happens that society ended up having the last laugh because we, of course, know prime numbers, they form the foundation of the modern internet and all cryptography and encryption that keeps our data secure because, of course, it's easy to multiply prime numbers, super hard to factorize them back out again, right? So it just so happens that sometimes, you play around and the applications of things end up coming sometimes centuries later, okay? But it's that playfulness, it's that disposition that I want to try and unpack today, and it's why you all have your decks of cards and so do I, okay? Now, I mentioned this just before, but a few people just arrived. If you have not already taken out your deck of cards, please remove the jokers as well and then put them back in the box. Then give your deck a nice shuffle. Now, we're going to be doing some things with these cards which are all about, for me, giving an avenue into which our students can explore mathematics, but in a very, I hope, and what I usually experience is a very non-intimidating way. You've experienced before, haven't you? Students decide already, before they've even met you, before they walk into your classroom, they look at the timetable and they say, oh, it's period 3, I have maths. And they take on an emotional posture, right? I read this book about Sudoku once upon a time, and it described all kinds of mathematical puzzles, of which Sudoku is a kind. Mathematical puzzles, they're kind of mathematics by stealth. Right? We can sneak in so much mathematics and, often students will not recognize it until much later on. I have students sometimes leave my classroom and they'll say, damn it, sir, you tricked us into learning maths again. And I'll say, you're absolutely right, I did. And that's what I intend to do today. Now, having shuffled your deck of cards, I want to show you the deck of cards that I happen to have up here. There are all these funky pictures on them. Don't be alarmed. This is a deck of cards that I was given to by a student whose parents worked at Qantas, I think. You know how they used to give out like these things when you get on the plane if it's a long flight, WA or something like that? So that's why there are all of these Australian icons like the Opera House on there. And what I'm going to do with this standard deck of cards is I'm going to perform a trick for you. It's part of why my sleeves are rolled up and I'm even going to take off my watch so you know there's nothing up my sleeves. And we are together going to do a bunch of tricks today. And this particular one, the first one, we're actually going to do literally simultaneously, okay? So I want you to take your deck of cards in hand. You should have one between two. I know there were threes, which made it a bit tricky. So as long as you have some cards near you, you'll all have your turn at giving this a go. Here's what I'd like you to do. Your deck is shuffled. Make sure it is actually shuffled, because if you're shuffling it the way I'm doing it right now, it's actually a famous problem about how unshuffled the deck is if it starts in new deck order. Just doing this, for example, if I do this and put them down, all of these cards are still in order, right? But I've used these many hundreds of times. So shuffle them up. And now we're all going to deal out cards in front of us. And I want you to follow the way in which I do it. Okay, so here's the first thing. I'd like you to turn over your very first card. Okay, just turn it over. Now, I happen to have a black card in my hand. If you also have a black card, I'd like you to put it on your left. If you have a red card, I'd like you to put it on your right. Red, right, just easy to remember, okay? Now, you've just put down a card that's visible. I want you to match it with a card that is invisible. I want you to put it right above. So it's face down, you can see. If you have a red card over here, then you'll also have a face down card above it. Does that make sense? So you've got two piles now. And then I'm just going to repeat this process. I'm going to look again. I have a different color now. The reds will always go on the right. The blacks will always go on the left. And every time I put down a seen card, I'm going to match it with an unseen card. Okay, now I'm just going to pause. So these 4 piles of cards, I'm just going to fill up these piles as I go through, and so are you, okay? And all I'm paying attention to is the color, black, red, black, red. Now, just quietly do this with me, and I want to point out a few things as we do it together. So start dealing, okay? Black goes on the left, seen and unseen, seen and unseen, seen and unseen. Now, listen carefully, okay? As you're putting your cards down, I want you to observe that unsurprisingly, the cards are coming out in an unpredictable random order, right? Sometimes you get it alternating between black and red. Sometimes, like I just did have, you get a streak of one color. I just got 2 reds in a row. Then I got 2 blacks in a row. So I want to highlight how unpredictable this process is. Secondly, I want to highlight that those face down cards, you really know nothing about those face down cards, right? If I were busy counting them as opposed to having a conversation with you, I would know how many cards there are, but as it is, I don't because I am busy having a conversation with you. I have no idea. Once you're done, by the way, you might like to square up those piles, make them look sort of well behaved. Okay? Now, as I just mentioned, I wanted to establish 2 facts. Okay? You've got, yeah, it looks hard, it's harder than it looks, isn't it, right? Like it's just dealing out cards. Okay. I have 4 piles of cards. Hopefully you also have 4 piles of cards. Okay. Now, are we content to agree that, number one, these cards were coming out at random order? That's the first thing. Do we agree? Yep. And secondly, do we agree that these cards up here, the face down cards, we really know nothing about them, right? We didn't watch them go down. You may have been counting like, oh, I had 10 here or 15 or something like that, but I was not. I was busy talking to you the whole time. I've got no idea what's going on up there, okay? You okay with that? All right, so we know very little, but I'm going to make it so we know even less. Tom, we could do this. In fact, everyone will get their own turn, but just for the sake of consistency, could you please choose for us, well, we did 1 to 4 this morning, right? Would you choose a number from 1 to 4 inclusive?
I'll say 3.
3, okay. What I'd like you all to do, and this is part of why you're in pairs, okay, if you are in a pair, is I'd like you, if you've got like a left-hand pile and a right-hand pile, the person on the left, I'd like you to select 3 cards from this pile on the left, right? You can look at them or not look at them, take them from the top, middle, or the bottom, it's completely up to you. Person on the right, I'd like you to do the same over here, right? So you're each going to pick up 3 cards. Now, I'm one person, so Tom, I'm going to ask you to help me out over here. Tom, do you want to pick 3 from there? Yep. And I'm going to pick 3 from here. And just hold on to your 3. Yep. Okay, perfect. All right, now, Tom and I have done this, so hopefully you have as well. I picked my cards from the right. Tom picked his cards from the left. We've got our 3, okay? You've each got your 3. Here's what I want you to do. Could you please swap your 3 cards? Swap. You can look at them, not look at them. It's up to you. Doesn't matter, okay? Now, having taken your cards, right, what I'm now going to do is I've got Tom's cards from the left. I'm going to put mine on the right, and Tom's going to put my cards, he's going to put his on the left. Okay, can you do that? So you've swapped these 3. Okay, so yours are going to go on the left. I'm going to go on the right. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Tom. You can grab a seat. Okay, so we knew very little at the outset, and now we've jumbled it up even more. And yet, I'm going to make a prediction. You see, I have these mathematical glasses on that allow me to perceive patterns that may seem completely random and unpredictable, but in fact, I would posit to you are not. Here's my prediction, okay? This mystery pile over here, I predict that the number of black cards in this mystery pile, I predict that it will match the number of red cards in this mystery pile. Now, before you did this at the same time that I did, you dealt and I dealt. For this one, I want you all to have your eyes locked on the front here with me because I need you to help me count, okay? Now, I'm going to start over here on the left. This is the left-hand side, which is where the black cards are. So as I put these down, I want you to count out loud with me, please. But only if they're black, right? If I put down a red card, you just don't say anything. But if I put down a black card, you do the count with me. Is that okay? Yeah. All right, let's have a go. So, you passed the first test. Well done. Okay, good. You passed the second test.
2, 3, 4, 5,
Okay, so I found 7 black cards over on the left. What was my prediction again? That the number of black cards here would match the number of red cards over there. So this time, again, you're going to help me count, but we're counting not black cards this time. We're counting red. Are you with me? Okay, here we go. What number were we looking for again? 7. All right, let's find out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Now, thank you. I'm here till Friday. Okay, now, sorry I was a bit off screen. I can't quite, anyway, should have paid more attention. Now, you've just found that my numbers match. My prediction came true. But you also have these cards in front of you, which you also dealt out, and I presume look different to mine. Could you please now have a look at your cards, use the person on the left, person on the right to check the number. You're looking for the number of black cards on the left, the number of red cards on the right. Off you go, good luck. You're counting for blacks, you're counting. Okay, class, now, we're not done with this trick yet, and I'm not going to make it so easy as to just put up a slide with the answer here. I'm putting you to work. This is a workshop, right? Okay, now, the first thing I want to notice is, well, actually, could you raise your hand if the trick worked for you? Heads up. Yay, hurrah. Okay, thank you. Heads down. Now, here's the other thing, and I'm deliberately going to do this really chaotically. Could you please, on the count of 3, could you call out, I had 7 black and red on both sides. On the count of 3, can you please call out the number you had? 3, 2, 1.
7.
Ooh. I heard 7s, I heard 9s. I know there was a 5 down here in the front row. Okay. Now, a 6. Okay. Now, I didn't say it at the outset, right? Remember I said mathematics by stealth. I wonder, and I'm still not going to say it yet, right? But I wonder if the cogs are turning for you now that you know all those numbers are different and yet somehow the same. I wonder if you're thinking about what kind of topic might I or might you introduce by way of this trick. Okay, now, we're still not done yet. Here's what I'd like you to do. I'm confident that we can work this trick out. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to put the cards all back together, shuffle them back up. Okay? But this time, as you do it, you're going to have to perform the trick without me talking you through it. And I wonder if, this is why you have your paper here, I wonder if you can work out why it is that this seemingly random process, which of course we now know is not random at all, how is it that it creates this pattern? Use some pen and paper, see if you can get to the bottom of it. If you've got an idea or you think you're on the right track, call me over, I'll see if I can help you out. Good luck. Oh, by the way, sorry everyone, I'm not going to stop you continuing, but I did forget to mention, Tom and I, or rather I asked Tom to select a number of cards to swap on both sides. Do you remember that? And he selected 3, but of course he had a free choice, didn't he? So what I'd like you to do, if you haven't already got to that stage, is pick a different number. 1, 2, 3, 4, see what happens. Is 3 part of it? What's going on here? And I mentioned over here to a couple of people in the center that I give this task, admittedly with more scaffolding than I gave you, but I give this task to stage 2 kids. Right? So at ages 9 and 10, they have all the mathematics they need to interact with this in a substantive way. Maybe not all of the mathematics that could take you further, but certainly enough to understand what's going on and for that brilliant moment of clarity to arrive when they're like, oh, it's not magic. This is a great quote I love from this Hindu mystic, and he says that things are magic until you understand them. Thereafter, they are mathematics. We're about to turn this magic into maths, okay? Now, one of the things that I think is trickiest about problem solving is one of the things which I remember, like I'd be at school and I'd turn to my friend and I'd be like, how do you do this, right? And the second they showed me their answer, it's like looking at a completed jigsaw puzzle. You no longer can see it without seeing the whole thing. And suddenly you've lost that ability to struggle, which is why I always warn my students, if you're doing, past exam papers, preparing for some assessment task, you be really, really careful with those worked solutions that you have access to, right? Because you can completely ruin the benefit that you get out of doing this by turning too quickly. You turn too quickly and you get this, we trick ourselves into feeling like I get it. Because I understand someone else's solution, but we do not get it. We need to kind of press through that confusion. Now, I think part of the confusion is we do not know, we don't have a good framework, and we're all coming up with different ones, which is wonderful, for trying to get at what are the salient details here, because you don't yet know what are the salient details. Some of you have already worked out the number 26 is clearly going to be very important to us, right? But we haven't worked out all of the ways in which it is. So, in order to facilitate us getting onto the next little trick with that deck of cards, I'm going to ask you to draw for me a table. It's 2 by 2. Make it considerable size. It'll become large in the reason it's large will become clear in a second. But of course, it's no mistake that there are 4 cells in my table because there are 4 piles of cards, right? But the 4 piles of cards I can further subdivide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 top cells and I'm just going to place an extra division here just to help my mind sift out the information a little more helpfully. Okay? Now, while you were all busy doing your trick, I actually did a little extra counting, and probably you started doing some more counting as well. And I wonder how many of you started to notice some patterns. For instance, I counted face up 12 black cards in this bottom right-hand corner. Okay? Now, I could then start counting all the rest of the piles, but if I pause for a minute, you'll realize, and the people who are in my keynote are kind of like, oh, he's done it again, right? In magic, they talk about this technique called misdirection. Do you know what that means? Okay. Misdirection is why, for example, your lovely assistant is such an attractive, young lady. It's so that you misdirect your attention, or Tom, you misdirect your attention, so that it's like, oh, your attention's over here, but what's happening is really over here, right? Now, one of the things I said, which was a bit of verbal misdirection, was to point out, and you clearly saw through it by the time we finished the trick. I said, oh, we don't know anything about these cards up here. Rubbish. We know lots of things. For example, because I know that there were 12 cards down here, you can already tell me without counting how many cards are in this pile. How many? There are 12, because every time you put a seen card down, you put an unseen card to match it, right? So you've already seen through my lie a little bit. You can see further, right? These are the blacks. These are the reds over here, right? I further subdivided, and you can see it up on the screen, into black and red within the secret piles. Which number was I fixated on? The one that I asked you to help me count out loud. It was the 7, right? Which was the number of black cards in this mystery pile over here. Right, but now that you know that there are, in fact, a set number of cards here, or not set, but a known number of cards, you can tell me how many reds there are. There are 5. Now, by exactly the same logic, again, without counting, I didn't go ahead and I say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You worked it out by logic instead. In exactly the same way, please tell me, how many red cards are over here? One of the things I love doing with my classes is always making them do predictions. One of my best teachers at school, he was the deputy principal, and he said, always make predictions in maths, right? Because you'll either be right and feel amazing, or you'll be wrong and then you'll learn something about why. Always make a prediction, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, just like you told me. Now, hold on a second, right? We've now counted a lot more cards than we did in the original time, right? And that's to try and pull the veil back on what's going on in this trick. How many red cards have I currently, on the board, accounted for? 19, 5 plus 14. But you knew from the beginning, before you even started dealing, how many red cards should be in this scheme, right? There should be exactly 26, of which 19 have already been accounted for, leaving, surprise, surprise, 26 take away 19, which is, of course, 7. Okay? Now, these are my cards, but your numbers are all different. If only I had some kind of branch of mathematics that allowed me to deal with numbers that are like different for different people, and yet they demonstrate the same kind of patterns. Oh, wait, we call it algebra. Right? So which is why I pulled this out in my Year 7 class, and rather than saying, okay, everyone, turn to page 1, the heading is Introduction to Algebra, we're going to write some definitions. Pronumeral. A pronumeral is blah, 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 blah. The fastest way to crush someone's appreciation for the power, the raw power that algebra unleashes to help you understand something which looks like a mystery, right? It's not a mystery at all. If you can say, well, there are really only a few unknowns in this, right? A few things that change from time to time, right? For example, this guy over here, the number of blacks that you found, this turns out to be the number that makes the trick work, right? They're like, ooh, aha, 5, 6, 9, whatever, right? So if you call that one X, okay? And then if you say, what's the other number that can change? Well, time to time, you might not have 12 and 14. You might have coincidentally ended up with 13 and 13. A lot of you will do that, by the way. I'll leave it again as a bit of homework for you to work out why so many of you got 13 and 13, right? Binomial distribution, anyway. And then, you might have that, but I don't. You might even have 10 and 16, right? In other words, it changes, okay? But from this, you can work out everything. For instance, this 14, where did you get it from? 26 take away X, because half the cards are seen, half the cards are unseen. By the way, half, right? One of the things, I don't know, you tell me if this is true in Victoria like it is in New South Wales, but when students learn symmetry, when they learn symmetry in New South Wales, they learn it exclusively in geometric terms. But go find we're in a university, right? Go find a group theorist and get them to explain to you symmetry. Of course, there is geometric symmetry, but boy, are there so many other kinds of symmetry. This is symmetry, right? It's just, there are no shapes involved. Well, not the shapes that I'm interested in, right? Now, where did my whiteboard marker go? Did I leave it on the table? Oh, here it is, on the whiteboard. That's 26 take away X. This X up here, right? Sorry. I call this one, let's give that a different name, sorry. Let's call it N for number, right? I can go from there. I know what this is, right? This guy here is the total of this, take away the black cards, right? And now I'll ask you that question again. How many red cards have I currently accounted for? Not 19. I have accounted for 26 take away N plus N take away X. That's how many red cards I have accounted for. Do you agree? Yes. Right? So in fact, that's actually 26 take away X. You can complete the puzzle, can't you? Right? Yeah. See, it's beautiful when they realize algebra can do that. That's what it can do. Now I'm paying attention. Okay. Did you enjoy that trick? Yes. Now, one of the other things I love about this is that so many students in our classes, they come into mathematics. You remember I said, they decide. They see it on their timetable and they decide before they've even experienced it. That's actually not true, because they have experienced it for the last 7 or 8 or 10 years. And so they figure this is just a continuation, right? And I have felt so disempowered all the way through my mathematical learning journey. No surprise, I'm expecting much of the same, right? What I love about this is how empowering it is. Every kid in the room can do this trick, right? My 5-year-old son, who's just like putting things out, he can recognize colors, he can do this trick. He can't understand it yet, right? But the kid in your class who feels so disempowered, like I can't do maths, they'll go home. They will try and find, with difficulty, a deck of cards in their home so they can show this to their siblings or their parents. It's deeply empowering. And I'll show you another one that is just the same. Could you shuffle your cards back together? Now, oh, watch out. Gold card on the floor. Oh, there you go. That's right. There you go. Okay, give it a nice shuffle. Oh, thank you so much, Jen. Much appreciated. Thank you. You're good. All right. By the way, fun little fact. Some of you might know, the 52 factorial ways that there are to shuffle a deck of cards is such a phenomenally large number, right? It's so phenomenally large that if we were all shuffling these from the beginning of time, right? Like just every minute we had a new shuffle, and then we go again and we start over. There's so many combinations that even over 13.7 billion years of the observable universe, we would not even have hit, 1% of the number of combinations of cards that there are, which means that having just take your shuffled deck and just put it aside, your deck of cards, that order that's sitting right there on your table, has probably never been shuffled before in all of human history, and will probably never be shuffled again. Doesn't that tickle you? Anyhow, now for this next trick, I am going to, instead of having you do this trick completely along with me, I'm going to do this whole trick first. I think it's a little bit simpler than the previous one. And so once I'm done with the whole thing, then you'll get your turn at doing the whole thing, okay? But for this trick, I need a volunteer. Can I get a volunteer, please? Anyone? Yeah, coming up. What's your name, sorry? James. Let's give James a clap. Thank you. Okay. Now, James is going to represent the entire group. Now, James, come over to the document camera. James, I'm going to give you some cards here. And you stand over here. And I'm going to come back over here. And Georgia, you can start shuffling those. Just keep shuffling. Now, Tom, sorry. That's Tom. I'm going to get you to do what is traditionally what, James is going to act as all of you guys, right? A magic trick usually is you pick a card and I will find out what your card is, right? The magician's like, ta-da, here it is, okay? Now, James, you're going to have to facilitate that by selecting the card for everyone. Now, don't do it yet because my eyes are open, okay? I need you to do two things, in fact. I'm going to ask you to choose a card. The first thing is you need to make sure everyone knows the card. So all you have to do is turn it upside down, give people sufficient time to look and remember, okay? And by the way, please remember, this trick is much less impressive if you get to the end and I'm like, aha, and you're like, I don't know, so please remember. James, that's the first thing. The second thing is, once you have selected your card, suppose, for instance, you select this card. Yep. What I'd then like you to do is please square the pile up nice and neatly and leave your card on top. Can you do that for me? Yeah. All right, now I'm going to take my glasses off and be suitably blind. James, you can go ahead, take as much time as you like. You can look at all the cards or just pick out one at random. Can you all see the card now? Yeah. Do you remember it? Yeah. Okay, so James, where are you going to leave that card for me? Yeah. Where are you going to put it for me?
On top of the pile.
Yeah, and tell me when I can open my eyes. Okay, thank you very much. James, you want to grab a seat?
I will, yes.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a clap. Okay, now Georgia's been busily shuffling these cards, and they weren't in my hands, they were in hers. And the reason why that is because a magician would say, I will now work out what your card is. And I'll do some like weird sleight of hand thing, etc. Right? But I am no magician. I'm a mathematician. So I'm going to try and go one better than what a magician would do. I am going to try and get the deck of cards. Not me, I'm going to try and get the deck itself to tell me what your card was, or the one that James selected on your behalf. Okay, now here's the way I'm going to do it. Just like in the previous trick, I'm going to deal out some decks of cards, some piles, 4 piles just like I did before, but I'm going to do it in a rather unusual way. As I put the cards down, I'm going to count down from 10. You know how like when a rocket blasts off, right? 10, 9, 8. And as I say those numbers, I will put a card down, and if the deck of cards says the same number that I say at the same time, then the deck is telling me to stop. It's a bit easier if you see me do it in person. So watch, I'm going to start counting down from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. It never matched, so I never stopped, so I'm going to finish like that. I'm going to do this a few more times, okay? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Another time, no big deal. I'm either really lucky or really unlucky today. Let's find out. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Did you see what just happened? I said 6, and the deck of cards simultaneously said 6. So it wants me to stop. Okay, the deck of cards is doing the job here. I've got 3 piles, I've got 1 last to go. Okay, when you're doing this trick, you'll also do 4 just like I'm about to. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. 3? You with me? Okay, so 6 plus 3, of course, is 9. Are you sure it's 9? Yeah. Positive? Yeah. Not making you question yourself? 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that your card? Thank you, thank you. Now, that's good, right? Okay, now, you're going to do this yourself, but that was a lot of things to watch, and I'm not expecting you to remember every single thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rehearse this for you in fast forward, okay? But really it's not that hard. However, you need to know just a couple of important facts that I just sort of glossed over, that if you're going to perform the trick, you need to know, okay? Now, in your pair, someone's going to do the trick. The other person is going to be James, and he's going to select the card, okay? So work out who's who, okay? Once you've worked out who's who, person who's doing the trick, you need to know some piece of information here, okay? And James equivalent, you're also going to need to know some things. So remember, when I gave James some cards to choose from, I did not give him all the cards. I gave most of them to Georgia over here, who shuffled them. I gave James, you might have noticed the way I did it actually if you're paying close attention. I gave James exactly 3, 6, 9 cards. If you're doing the trick, would you please give exactly 9 cards to your friend? Now, friend, person who is going to have the trick done on them, you're going to select your card, but what are you going to do with your card once you remember it? Do you remember where I asked you to leave it? You're going to take your card, like say for instance, the 7 of clubs, and then you're going to leave it on top. Now, last step, I received the cards back from Georgia. Did anyone notice what I did with them? I placed them right on top. Okay. Now, this usually happens when I actually do it, but it didn't, so I'm just going to show you now, right? Remember, if I go 10, ooh, that's a coincidence. Okay. Now, those of you who played cards when you were little like I did know that court cards, the jack, the queen, the king, they have a value of 10. So this means if I put down this and I said 10, it's saying 10, right? I'm going to go again. I'm going to go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. But don't forget, if I got all the way down, suppose that was not a 3, okay? 3, 2, 1. What did I do if I never matched up the number? 0. I said 0 and I put something on top. Do you remember that? You now know everything you need to know. See if you can make the trick work and bamboozle your friend. Good luck. Can I grab your attention one last time? We got 15 minutes to the end, which I think is just enough time for us to tie this up and then for me to show you the last trick that I wanted to demonstrate. So I'm not going to put you on the spot, but who feels like they're most of the way there to understanding it? A few hands up? Okay, all right, that's fine. For the rest of you, by the way, if you're like, nah, I'm still completely in the desert. I got no clue, right? One of my favorite quotes, I almost showed it this morning actually. It's from a British mathematician named W.S. Anglin. And he said, like 150 years ago, he said, mathematics is not a careful march down a well-cleared highway, but rather a journey into a strange wilderness where the explorers, get this, where the explorers often get lost. Now, if you feel lost, often our students, when they feel lost, because they feel lost a lot, they draw a conclusion about themselves, don't they? They say, I feel lost because I'm dumb, because I'm not into maths. I get that reinforced for me from my exam marks, sometimes from my parents, sometimes even from our teachers, unwittingly or wittingly. I feel lost because I suck at maths, right? But if W.S. Anglin is right, that if in fact mathematics is not a careful march down a well-cleared highway, but a place where you're supposed to get lost, because that's what exploring means. You go somewhere you've never been before, you get lost, that's what happens, right? That's when you do real maths. When you're like, it hurts a little bit, but where can I use a launch pad? How can this be a launch pad for me to understand? So now, let's use this as a launch pad, right? Now, hopefully most of you have at least made some progress to understand, for example, why it was important that I gave James 9 cards, right? So for example, here's the 9 of clubs that's on the top of the 9, coincidentally, okay? We know it's the 9 of clubs, you remember it, you think, okay, that's the one I'm looking for when I finish, and then I take the rest of the cards. Georgia handed me the rest of the cards. How many cards is the rest of the cards? 43, 52, take away the 9. But when I take these 43, and some of you have worked this out, right? And I place them on top. There's your 9 of clubs right there. From the top of the pile, which is how I count down, it's how you count it down. The 9 of clubs now is in what position? There are 43 cards on top of it. So it's in position 44. And how many piles of cards did you make again? You made exactly 4 piles of cards. Now watch carefully. 10. Okay. Not a rhetorical question. How many cards are currently on the table? 1 card. But the number that's in your mind, the number you remember, and the number you add is not 1, it's 10. What's 1 plus 10? 11. Thank you. Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. How many cards are in this pile? 11, because of the 0 I said, right? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. How many cards are in this pile? 5, but the number you will remember is 6, because 6 plus 5 is 11. And in fact, all of this I just love, I mean, sometimes you do this, and some of you did this as well. You get to the end, and you have a different set of cards to what I did and the person next to you, and you think, this can't be. How can it work? And it's different every time. And the answer is, it's not different every time. It's the same every time. The mystery card is always in position 44, and all you're doing is doing 11 plus 11 plus 11 plus 11 to get you to position 44 every time, except for one time. If you're really lucky or really unlucky, your final setup might look like this. Did it happen to anyone? It happened? Okay. Now, think about this with me, right? How many cards, if I did this properly, are in this pile? 11. There's 11 in every pile, which means that currently on the table there are, in total, 44 cards, which means the one that you put down last is the one that you want. Okay, you worked it out. Well done. Okay. However, I just love that it so frequently doesn't happen. Actually, you always get something comes up. By the way, it's usually the 10 because I've given you 4 options: the 10 and the Jack and the Queen and the King. Make sense? Wonderful. Okay, so I have time for one last one. I've got time for one last one.
Can I just add to that?
Please, yes.
Most of the time you don't have a pack of cards that are complete. You know how many you've got.
Yes.
You just need to reduce the...
That's exactly right.
If you're one short, only deal out 8 cards at the start.
Precisely right. That's exactly right. Because it's just you subtract 44, and that will give you however many you should hand over. Okay. Oh, 43 I should say. 43. All right. Now here's the last one. Now I apologize. For me, it's more important that you leave this room with understanding than it is with the ability to do tricks. Okay, because you can look up more tricks, right? But what's more important is that you understand how the tricks work. So this next one, what I'm going to do is, I'm looking at the time. I think the way this is going to work is, I will show you this trick. I don't think you will have time to enact it, but we will have time to see it and then understand it. The explanation is what's going to take up the time. I'm either explaining or getting you to do it, and I think the explanation is more important. Okay. So can you do me a favor? Put those cards back in the box. I'll collect them afterwards. Here's how this trick works. It's similar to the one before. I'm going to try and work out what your card is, but it does work somewhat differently. So, hold on. Okay. Now, we don't need those ones. Okay. Can I get another volunteer, please? Yeah. What was your name? Sorry. Peter. Peter. Let's give Peter a clap. Is that you? You must, it's essential, you must clap whichever student comes up to meet you. That's part of the thing, right? Okay, now Peter, you're going to, just like before, select a card. Just like before, you're going to show it to everyone, okay? But differently, you might have noticed the trick that we did just now, it is completely dependent on the mystery card being placed in a specific spot. We're not going to do that this time because you got to up the ante, right? So Peter, once you've shown everyone the card, I want you to put it back into the part, mix it up, and then once it's been really shuffled, then put them all together for me. Can you do that for me? All right, so I'm going to take off my glasses again. Peter, you're going to select the card. Can audience, can you please let me know when you've memorized it? You're happy? Okay, Peter, give it a nice big shuffle. Make sure it's not, the whole lot. Or everything that's on the underneath the document camera. And tell me when you're ready for me to open my eyes. We've got a professional over here. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, we're good.
Good? Okay, thank you, Peter. You can grab a seat. Now, what are we going to do here? Well, I'm going to, just like before, I'm going to deal out some cards. I'm going to deal them all face up, okay? And as I do so, you remember the card that you chose. I want you to watch for that card. Watch for where it appears. Don't say, there it is, okay? Because then I will know. Just remember its position in your mind, okay? I'm going to have 3 piles here, and I want you to remember which pile it's in. Some of you might have seen this trick, by the way, so I hope you enjoy it. So here we go. I'll start off nice and slow. So it's either going to be in the left, or the middle, or the right, okay? Left, or middle, or right. Okay, so you're just watching for your card. Now tell me if I'm going too fast, but once you see the card, again, all I want you to do is remember its position. Did you see it? Yeah. Left, middle, or right? Left? I heard someone say something else, like, ooh, I meant another card. That's fine. Okay, so you said it was on the left one. That's totally fine. Now, I apologize. Often mathematical card tricks do require an obscene amount of dealing cards. So I'm going to do this again, okay? Again, I'm going to do this fast. I think you get the idea. Okay. Again, you're just looking for your card. and where its position is. Now, once I get to the end, left, middle, or right? Middle. Okay, so it changed, right? Now I have to do this one last time, and then we're ready to go. If I can coordinate enough to pick these up. All right, here we go. Left, middle, or right? Okay, left, middle, right. Oh, it migrated. Okay. Now, at this point here, right, you might think, hold on a second, Eddie, you were watching all of the cards, right? And so therefore you could work out, like you could watch, oh, it's got to be one of these cards here, and then like think, okay, one of those, I'll remember all of those, and then when it goes to the next part, I'll like, well, now I've just narrowed it down, right? So it's going to be one of them within there, and so therefore I kind of can know what your card is, right? Because it always face up. However, if I was then going to work out what your card was, now that I know what it is, apparently in that narrative, I would have to look through the cards, find your one, and then say, here it is, because I recognized it, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get you to tell me what the card was. Here's the way this is going to work. Because you all know the card, right? You have in your mind the knowledge of what card it was. And it's there subconsciously for me to read. And so I'm going to get everyone here to help me out, right? Not just Peter, okay? Let's start with, what's your name? Katie. Katie, could you please select for me? There are a bunch of piles on here on the table. Can you pick 4 of the piles? I'll number them for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can you pick 4 of them for me?
2, 4, 6, and 7.
2, 4, 6, and 7. These piles here, the ones I've got my fingers on? Yep. You're sure that's the piles you're picking? And I'm not like influencing you or anything like that?
That's what I'm picking.
That's what you're picking? So you don't want these other 3 piles I'm going to put my fingers on now, these 3 piles?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to get rid of those then, because you said you didn't want them. Okay, that's totally fine. There we go. So they're gone. Okay, thank you, Katie. Someone else? Someone else? Yep, what's your name?
George.
George, can you pick 2 piles for me? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
2 and 7.
2 and, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You mean 2 and 7? 2 and 7, those 2?
1 and 4.
Those are the ones you're right. You're certain it's these ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I didn't like influence your decision in any way. Okay, so I'm going to move them out of the way. We've got 2 piles left. Okay, so what's your name?
Ramen.
Ramen?
Yeah.
Left or right?
Right.
Right, that one over there? You sure?
Yeah.
I'm not choosing. You chose, you don't want to change? Okay, all right, fine. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Jen, you've been so helpful to me. I'll let you choose this one. 1, 2, or 3?
2.
2. You're really sure it's 2?
Absolutely.
And I haven't like, Jen drove me here this morning. I haven't like influenced you or anything like that?
In the car, pick 2, whatever.
Pick 2, pick 2. Well, I'm glad that conversation, which never happened, because I think that's the card, right? Now, I meant to get you out of here at 12. There's 4 minutes left to 12. Actually, is it? Because is my, yep, okay, happy times, right? So what the hell, right? Okay, now, I will open up, okay? Can I ask, who's seen this trick before? Okay, all good, okay, all right. Can you explain the trick? Can you explain the trick?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Do you,
Well, you've got 21 cards, and basically you're picking a pile. So basically, you've limited Eddie's observations to just 7 cards. And then, again, those 7 cards from those 7 will be shuffled in a certain way. They go back in the middle of the pack.
pause there. What was your name, sorry?
Mark.
Mark, okay, now, I just want to pause on that detail because it's a very important one that Mark just mentioned, right? When I, dealt out all of the cards, they looked like this, and I asked you which pile it was, okay? The astute among you, and those who are physically close enough, will notice, I take your pile, I think we start off with the left one first, right? I take it and I do something very deliberate. I put it in the middle of this other pile, and I put the other one on the bottom, okay? Now I do this 3 times. And because I do it 3 times, as Mark is suggesting, right? The first time I do it, it's clearly in the middle 7, isn't it? Right? It's in the middle 7, there's 7 above and 7 below, okay? If I do this a second time, it goes closer to the middle. It becomes actually in the middle 3 or 4, depending on which pile you chose. If I do it a third time, it goes to the middle of the middle of the middle. In fact, it goes exactly in the middle of 21 cards. Now, what is the middle card of 21 cards? The middle card is the 11th card, right? Now, when I gave you guys this choice, right, I wasn't doing this out loud, but I was counting in my head. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Watch carefully, right? What did I just say? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Bam. There's your card. I knew it from the beginning. 12, and then I don't care what I do with the rest of these, right? Now, some of you, because I heard you, right? Some of you noticed them, but then how did I get to the magic card if you had free choice, which you really did? You did have free choice. You had choices about what numbers, but you didn't choose what I did with the decks, did you? Right? But I was trying to misdirect you a little bit. I'm like, do you want these cards? Are you sure? Right? What I'm trying to do is, like, this for me is an emblem, right? You know, kids are flicking through their Facebook feed, they're on Snapchat or whatever. They feel like they have free choice over what they're liking and hearting and ha-haing or whatever, right? But they don't have free choice, right? Facebook decides what they get. I decided whether I was going to move those cards away or whether I was going to keep them. And I always knew it was going to be number 11. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope you're playful in your classes. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.